So, hello everyone, and welcome to this beautiful conversation I'm going to have with Claire Joyce, who's an amazing OT, and she has an incredible presence on Instagram where she's sending out her message, spreading her work, and really giving so much support to parents in their parenting journey as an OT. So, I want to let you guys know a little bit about her and her work before we dive in. We're talking about the mind and body disconnect today, which is really exciting. I'm a super nerd into all the neuroscience and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to pick your brain. But hello, Claire, how are you?
Hi, Stephanie. I am great. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me on here today to talk all things child development. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, that is so good. I'm really excited, and I know we're going to chat about a few different things that, guys, if you're a parent of a child of any age, this stuff is going to be really beneficial for you. Okay, so Claire is a beautiful OT, as I mentioned. I want to give you guys a little bit of background into her and her work, and then we're going to jump into some kind of questions and discussion. So, as I said, I am watching, we've got some, Naomi's in Gold Coast in the airport at the moment. Hi, Hannah. Hi, Dean from WA, and Claire, another Claire is watching. Thank you guys. Let us know where you're watching from. And if you have any questions, maybe we can put them in the comments. And if we have time, I can ask Claire a couple of them. That would be really cool. So Claire is an OT. She graduated in 2009 with a Bachelor of Science and Honours in Occupational Therapy. She's originally from Ireland. Don't know if you can tell from her accent yet, but we'll hear a lot more. And she came over to Sydney, Australia in September 2009. So she's been here for a while supporting families, and she's always worked within the area of paediatrics, and as a result, she's super passionate about working with and helping kids, young children, and young people to live a fuller, happier life through her work, which is this is what we want for our kids, right? Just for them to live their full best expression of their life and to be happy. So Claire, can I ask you, why did you get into OT? What kind of, what did you love about it, or what piqued your curiosity?
That's a really good question, actually, Stephanie. If I'm perfectly honest, I probably always thought I was going to work with adults, but I loved the area of occupational therapy because I suppose doing placements and things like that when I attended secondary school, and I worked in also I worked in a nursing home, so I had experience working with occupational therapists, and I suppose loved how adaptive they were in their treatments, and how I suppose ultimately they help people. So helping people kind of regain that function and the independence, and just as you say, bringing joy back into their lives. So but I fell into the areas of pediatrics, and to be honest, then I've obviously never deterred out of it. I absolutely now love pediatrics. I'm very passionate about helping children. I work in the area of early intervention, so I really value our role in how much we can do to helping children flourish. And also, probably since becoming a mother as well to my own two little boys, it has definitely grown my interest and passion into helping children, and just so they can enjoy their everyday activities and live life to the fullest.
Yeah. How old are your boys?
So my boys are aged 5 and 4. So there's 15 months between them.
So that would have been a busy, challenging time when they were like 1 and 2 and 2 and 3.
Oh, look, I'll not lie. It's probably why I haven't had any more. It definitely was busy in the first couple of years, but now we're finding our groove. So, but no, thankfully they're doing well. We experience a lot of these emotional regulation challenges, what we're going to talk about today. So as I say, I experience it firsthand. So I am, as I say, probably as a result, it has increased my passion even more to help families, because even with my pediatric experience, I have struggled so much as a mother to obviously support my own children. So yeah, I just want to obviously help as many families as I can. So yeah, I'm definitely passionate about early intervention.
Oh, I love that. So most people will know if they're on this Facebook group or they've been on for a little while, or maybe the YouTube channel where this will go, is that I've spoken about being a speech pathologist before I fell into emotional intelligence. And so I often say, actually, I think I say this to people around me, but not so much out online. So maybe this is the first time I've said it, but I feel like I should have been an OT, not a speechy. Because of, like, I should ask you, the scratch of the surface that I know about OT and what you guys do, what we'll talk about today, the mind and the body and the nervous system and all that amazing stuff. That stuff has helped me exponentially as a parent to my two kids. So has being an OT and the knowledge about your work and child development and all of that stuff, has that helped you in your parenting with your boys?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. And I suppose also having those skills, I can also teach my husband how to also parent, especially when we have two little boys who have, one in particular has got quite an explosive personality. So it really helps. I suppose my background helps us to understand the child and understand why he's obviously needs to express himself in those big reactive behaviors. And then we move away from labeling that child as being defiant and naughty and all of the other things that we label children. So it really has helped us, as I say, probably change the lens as parents. And as I say, just helping us to support both of our children to the best we can. So
yeah, can I ask you, we're already deviating and I said we'll probably do that and it's fine. What is your I want to say your lens, what is your perspective on the labels that we have for kids who, don't fit that typical mold? Maybe the kids who are, challenging or more explosive or more disruptive or more strong-willed, like even those labels, but all the other big labels that, or the medical labels, I should say, things like that. What's your view? Do you use them? Do you not like them? Are they good or bad or wrong? What can you share on that?
Well, that is actually an excellent question. I suppose it very much depends on the child. Sometimes I find a diagnosis can be really beneficial because obviously it helps us as parents, as professionals, as teachers to understand why, as I say, the child is behaving in a particular way or why the child has difficulties in certain areas. I generally, to be honest, because I work within the area of typically 0 to 7 years old, I encourage parents to try therapies first. I am very much about, as I say, the brain and body disconnect, where I believe that we can rewire the brain to work differently. So ultimately, I believe when a child is displaying those big behaviors or if they have difficulty in gross motor coordination skills, it generally comes back to an interference in the central nervous system. So it's really just about trying to activate that sensory integration to make those beautiful neuro connections. And then that's where we have that beautiful neuroplasticity.
Yeah, wow, that is so amazing. So we did decide to talk about the mind and body disconnect. Why do you feel like that's such an important topic to explain to parents in the way that they see and understand and connect with their kids, particularly those kids with maybe persistent challenging behaviors, or the behaviors that sometimes baffle us or confuse or frustrate us. Let's talk a bit about that.
I suppose it's really important because most of us know that movement, for instance, can help the body stay healthy, but movement can actually change the structures within the brain. So it's really important to kind of take it back and then look at this, as I say, the whole child. There is a huge correlation between children who present with emotional regulation difficulties, social interaction difficulties, and those who present with low muscle tone, reduced core strength, and reduced motor coordination skills. So as I say, it's looking at the whole child and trying to understand where, or understanding how the brain is developing and meeting the child at where their brain is developing to try to then bring on their higher functioning functions of the brain. So access the skills and the higher functions of the brain.
Wow. So what do parents need to know about the brain, or what do we not know that when we finally understand or have a bit of knowledge around, then it shifts, you know, it starts to shift things with us?
I suppose basically what we should try to understand is firstly how the brain develops, but also, and I came across this often, parents, they're often encouraged to focus on like reducing the child's behaviors, teaching them strategies to almost have the child to help the child like act normally. But in actual fact, we really need to kind of go to that like bottom up and work to getting to the underlying cause of why this is happening. So really kind of bringing it back, as I say, to that brain development and looking at like what is causing the disconnection for the brain to work at its optimal function.
So what is, in your experience, what's causing that disconnect or the non-integration of the body and the brain? Because you mentioned bottom up, working from bottom up. What does that look like?
So I suppose to answer the first question, there can be a number of reasons to why this happens. So actually healthy development of a baby actually starts before the baby's even conceived. So it can be like environmental factors, the parent's diet, parent's stress levels, genetics, and as I say, the list goes on. The baby is then conceived, and then, as I say, how the female then is, how she is during pregnancy, ultimately that can also impact on how the baby develops. And then when obviously the mother gives birth, the birthing experience can also then influence how the baby develops. So if there's any intervention, if the mother has ended up having a cesarean section, a one-day-old baby can have quite a traumatic start to life, if to say it nicely. But so the little baby may already have quite an interference in their little central nervous system, which then impacts, or it may impact how, as I say, the brain then develops, which takes us on to, I suppose, the brain development. The brain stem, which is just at the bottom of the brain, this is what we talk about, like bottom up approach. The brain stem develops at the bottom of the brain, and it typically develops from the age of it develops in the utero up until the age of 2 years old. And I don't know if many people's familiar, but generally we talk about the brain stem being the survival brain, and that activates and switches on when we perceive something to be threatening. So on top of the brain stem is the cerebellum. So it then starts to develop starts on top of the brain stem, but depending on how well the brain stem has developed, this will influence how well the cerebellum is going to develop. And the cerebellum is responsible for how we move our body, our motor coordination, etc. On top of the cerebellum is the limbic system. And this is the system that is responsible for emotional regulation. Again, depending on how well this brainstem develops, influences the cerebellum, influences the limbic system. Then from that, on top of the limbic system is the cortex. So the cortex is our thinking brain. So generally speaking, we need all of these to form beautifully in order to have this beautiful brain development. What happens often is if there's an interference in the development of one of these functions, the messages that are received from the central nervous system, there's a disconnect. So instead of like flowing right all around the brain, the message gets lost, and then it's maybe the brain stem part of the brain is receiving the messages and responding rather than it doing a full loop of the circuit. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And it makes me think, so if all of that if we have a 10-year-old, for example, or a 5-year-old, I know you're in the early intervention space, and we think, oh, well, all that stuff is, well, not all of it, but most of it is developed. And we know the cortex is still developing until the mid to late 20s.
Absolutely.
About those early parts, what can we can't go back in time. So where does your OT knowledge come in with, okay, there may be some disconnects there, and what can we do about it, or what can parents do to help their kids with emotional regulation, if we just even pluck that out, because obviously the parents here are all they're invested and passionate about learning how to raise emotionally intelligent kids and help their kids with their emotions. So what can we do, or what are some takeaways from having that knowledge?
Absolutely. That is, as I say, a brilliant question. And I'm so glad, as I say, you've asked that question, because I suppose this information will now be critical on how we help these children develop those emotional regulation skills. So generally speaking, we meet the child where the child is at, where the brain is developing. So a lot of these children who experience these big emotional reactions are generally using like the brainstem brain. So they're using the function of the brainstem brain, which, as I say, is having us go into that quick, like flight, fight, freeze response. So they almost look as if they're like overreacting to small problems as such. And as I say, then the next level up is the cerebellum, which is responsible then for the motor coordination skills. Often they go hand in hand, as I mentioned before, of the poor emotional regulation skills and the motor skills. And children also who display the emotional regulation difficulties generally have poor impulse control and I suppose lack of body awareness. So they're in other people's spaces, as I say, they're coming into that fight response. So we really pull it back to activate the brainstem and the cerebellum. And we do this through purposeful exercises. So generally speaking, when we think of a newborn baby, in the first 2 years, 3 years of life, we do lots of those motor movements. So exercises that I would do with children, for instance, in treatment sessions, would be lots of crawling, lots of tummy time exercises. Play park activities are excellent as well. So climbing, swinging, monkey bars, animal walks are also a beautiful one, because children are generally very motivated to do those type of activities. Any exercise really that's getting the whole body moving and working together, and any activity that's engaging the core, the postural reflexes as well. So we really want to get the body moving, and like children's bodies moving more efficiently, and as a result, that's what starts making the neural connections. And then we start to fire the connections through the brain, and then the frontal lobe of the brain develops.
Oh my God, you explain it so beautifully. Like just the reasons behind what we're doing with our kids, those exercises, those gross motor movements and things like that. And I feel like I know the answer to this, but I want to ask it so that you can answer it and everyone can hear it. So are you saying that when our kids have challenging behaviors, or they are, struggling to manage their emotions and they're explosive, that they're not just choosing to be naughty and rude?
Absolutely. Look, I very much believe no child chooses to be naughty. All children want to learn, and all children want to do well. And when you do start, as I say, making progress with the emotional regulation, you'll see the beautiful little child starting to appear, and they're almost a little bit helpless. They're just reacting, as I say, with that brain stem functions of the brain. And when they're doing this, they have very little control over their responses and reactions. So it's basically, as adults, like professionals or parents cares, we are trying to give the children the tools to help them develop, as I say, the functions of the brain. And as I've mentioned, we develop the functions and the structures of the brain through movement and purposeful exercises.
So how interesting that just physical, purposeful exercises and activities can actually influence the brain and create new connections and well, yeah, like I'm thinking of the disconnect that can happen through those early years. That can be, would you say that can be corrected?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely, as I say, I very much take a movement approach within my interventions, and I have seen beautiful results. I definitely, they may not be like 100% corrected, but we definitely reduce a lot of those big reactive behaviors. We support children in having more control over their body and using more, being able to access the coping strategies and tools. So absolutely, I definitely see big results with using that like bottom-up approach.
Yeah, and I have two questions already that have come to mind. Number one, does this help, or could this help kids in a classroom setting, where even though you're educating parents on what to do with exercise and things at home? And the other one was, can you share a story or any stories, almost like success stories of kids that you have worked with, and where you started with them, and where you, the changes and the improvements that you've seen from doing some of the OT work? Sorry,
well, firstly, I absolutely think that these strategies can be used within the classroom. However, I'm also mindful teachers are very busy. They have a lot of children to work with, so they often don't get the time to get, I suppose, the whole class and the children moving. But there definitely is like research studies to suggest that those teachers who do take that approach actually have like higher successes in learning, and attention and concentration, and all of those, as I say, skills come together. I personally believe it's definitely an approach that should be integrated into schools. And to answer then the second little question, I do have one little boy actually in particular that I started seeing over a year ago. Very fast, very, to be honest, the mummy had to keep the door locked because literally he would have just been out the door and away. Super quick, super energetic, real quick responses, lifting items and throwing them, quite explosive. So when I first started working with the family, her main concern was trying to get him ready for school because he was 4 years old, and he wouldn't hold a pencil. So when I first started working with the family, I did explain this, but I understand that it probably can be quite overwhelming for parents. A lot of information kind of initially, but I very much started as what I said with the bottom up approach. So working on that brain stem development, the cerebellum, etc., to work on those higher functioning skills. So I did a lot of those exercises that I have mentioned, all of those core strengthening exercises, whole body movement exercises. I won't lie, initially I could sense that the mummy was a little bit anxious, purely because she wanted me to work on handwriting skills, and we did not even lift a pencil. So I could tell she was probably a bit nervous with my approach, and she did ask often, oh, would you not practice handwriting? But I said, look, please trust in the process. So she was very good now at doing the exercises, because that is a key ingredient. The frequency, the intensity, and the duration of the exercise need to be consistently done throughout the week. But 6 months later, we sat down at a table to do some pencil activities, and he now holds the pencil beautifully. I didn't do any pencil practice. So that's what I say, just by doing all of these motor activities, it naturally throws, it fires up the neural connections to the frontal lobe of the brain. And then we have those higher functionings just naturally beginning to develop. So now he attends, he's in kindy. He's doing really well. He's actually now sitting average within the class. And actually, I attended school one day to see him for a therapy session, and his teacher came out to meet me and actually was questioning why he was attending OT. So he still, as I say, has some difficulties with the emotional regulation. It still slightly fluctuates, but in comparison to where he was at, to now, he's developed beautifully. So that's definitely a success story.
That is so good. Isn't it funny when we have to, you know, I want to say like in life, but particularly in what we do, we have to encourage parents to trust the process. There are sometimes many layers underneath the goal on the top of the iceberg, let's call it, of I want my child to manage their emotions, to stop being so defiant or rude or disruptive or explosive. There are things that need to happen before we can just teach our kids how to notice when they're getting angry and stop it. Like it's just that there's lots there, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. As I say, we just really need to pull it back to work on the fundamental skills, and then that will just naturally progress. So as I say, now that mummy fully understands and appreciates the gross motor activities, and she still continues to do them. So, but it is truly amazing when the motor skills and the body awareness begins to develop. Then, as I say, those higher functioning skills, the speech and language skills start to develop as well, the emotional regulation and skills, even the executive functioning skills. So they all just naturally develop without me necessarily having to pinpoint working on them.
Yeah.
But I then also kind of come in like on a cognitive style approach as well, and also introduce then the tools that we can also use to keep our body calm. So it's almost like a combined approach, movement approach combined with the cognitive style approach.
Yeah, it's almost like a coming at it from both angles. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely works best, because I have worked alongside other professionals who maybe do more of a cognitive style approach, but I just feel when there's that brain and body disconnect, the progress is slow. So you really need to meet the child where the child is at, bring them up, and then kind of combine the two approaches.
Like a sandwich. Oh my God, that's brilliant. So I get, we're going to finish up in a few minutes because I know we've gone over time, and I started late and things, but I do want to ask about some practical takeaways or some strategies that parents could potentially start to implement or try with their kids at home. I want to put a big disclaimer saying I know that neither of us can give specific advice for specific families. This is very general. We obviously need to know a lot about the child and the family and the dynamic and everything. But let's just say, for generally speaking, for parents who have kids who potentially are they do have the big reactions, or they struggle to regulate frustration and anger, or, sadness, confusion, overwhelm, anxiety, things like that. Are there some things that parents should at least even be mindful of, or potentially put into practice a bit more with their kids, from that movement, that bottom-up sort of approach?
Absolutely. I suppose firstly, and as you preach it to Stephanie, meeting the child with a very nurturing and caring, I suppose meeting them in that relationship, that we trying to keep their little brains safe.
Yes.
When a child is feeling like safe and feeling happy, that is when they want to play and learn. As I said, though, often those children who experience the emotional regulation difficulties can tend to have those poor motor skills as well, or low tone. So quite often it can be difficult to get these little ones moving, because obviously they find that the movement exercise is difficult, or they might fatigue a little bit quicker. But I suppose, to take away from today, what I would say, and what I also advise parents, is try to do like one movement exercise a day. Whether that's attending a play park, but when you're at a play park, be mindful about trying to get your child to actually play and work. So as we do talk about, play is the work of childhood. And I know I'm guilty of it myself, but I may bring my children to the play park. They might have a toy car, so they'll play with the toy car, or they'll play with a stick, but they're not actually using any of the playground equipment. So it's more about being mindful that when we are allocating that time for play, trying to get them to do like some functional movement, the purposeful movement, to really activate those muscles and the core strength. I generally would advise one kind of gross motor activity, and even if it's spending 5 to 10 minutes, if it's bicycle, as I say, bicycle riding, or the play park activity, trying to allocate that time, and also spending time outdoors. So connecting to nature, whether that's also just playing in the garden, whether we want to remove the socks and shoes, to go barefoot on the grass. The fresh air obviously does everyone wonders. So just connecting, as I say, with outdoors, and trying to just focus on one movement, rather than being overwhelmed by 500 exercises that we should be trying to do, but just trying to do that one movement, as I say, well.
Yeah, I love that. So if parents, do they need any special equipment? Or I know there's so many things that when I worked as a speech pathologist, the OTs had, amazing either rooms or bags of toys and resources and things. Is that necessary for parents? Do they need to go out and buy things so that they can help their kids with these movements and exercises?
I would say absolutely not. So I did used to work in a clinic, and we had all the beautiful equipment, and it does make it lots of fun. But I am now a mobile therapist, and I very much work in families' homes. So I use what is within the home. But generally speaking, when a child plays naturally, they will naturally play outside. They'll play maybe on a trampoline, they'll balance along the curbs of the road, etc., etc. So you can use lots of things around your house. The bear walks, all of those activities actually that I have mentioned, bear walks, crawling, even jumping, star jumps, snow angels, all of those type of exercises require absolutely no equipment. And that's very much what I like to encourage, because then it's much more realistic for parents to try to do at home. But yes, as I say, generally speaking, it's about being mindful about how your child is moving and spending that time to correct the movement.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That's really, really beneficial. Thank you. I'm seeing lots of hearts, and I think that's from the amazing Lara Dawn. She's jumped on. She's our kind of resident ADHD mama expert. So I want to ask you now about, how does your body feel your books and your book launch, and how, where people can access these, and why did you create these? What was sort of the purpose and the drive behind these books? Tell us a bit about them and where people can get them.
Absolutely. Well, I have a little box set here just to give you a little visual. So yes, and there's just 4 little books inside. So just discussing my body feels calm, angry, sad, and anxious. I suppose, as I have mentioned, I am highly passionate about helping children, and I have obviously worked in the area of pediatrics since graduating, but since having my own children who both experience emotional regulation difficulties, they're almost at like 2 ends of the spectrum. One is very anxious, and the other, as I say, has that explosive reactive personality. So I was just mindful that how much I struggled with my own children, and obviously I have my pediatric background and knowledge and skills, but when I would also be trying to teach my own children about this in the books, they are combined with movement and cognitive style strategies, but when I was trying to teach my children, say, the cognitive style strategies, I found there was nothing really that brought everything together, if that makes sense. So I just decided, I felt the need to also teach my own children, but I'm mindful that there are so many families that are not accessing occupational therapy. They don't have access to a psychologist or a speech therapist. So they are actually without any help or support. So I thought just creating a little resource would obviously be very helpful for many families. So inside each book, I talk a little bit about how the emotion can make the body feel. And then, as I say, I have included lots of strategies. So
I love the pictures, the illustrations.
Nice, bright little
Yeah.
too, so it's easy to follow.
Yeah.
So as like lots of little strategies in the books that should help children. I have actually been using these books as well in my therapy sessions, so children tend to relate to them well, and because the pictures are bright and simple, a lot of these children as well are visual learners, so I find that they almost access that visual memory, and then they follow through with the strategy. So
wonderful.
But they are on sale on my website. So my website is learnthroughplay.com.au. So yes, as I say, the purpose is obviously to help as many families and children as possible. I have obviously witnessed my own children experience those big emotions, and I can fully appreciate the extent to how much that can interfere with their performance, their interactions, and their, I suppose, everyday activities. So as a parent myself, I found it emotionally heavy watching my own children be in distress. So as I say, that is why I was led to create these little books.
Yeah, they are beautiful. They're so gorgeous. And I love that they've got that, two-way approach, the sort of top down, thinking about our feelings and putting words to them, but the body up or the bottom up as well, which is really amazing. So I will put on the Facebook and the YouTube, recording. I'm going to put down all of Claire's links. She's on Instagram as learnthroughplay_AU. Is that right?
Well, actually, I changed it yesterday, probably. Changed it last night, and I thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. But it's learnthroughplay_OT.
Okay, all right.
That would be easier because it was actually learn through play underscore or AUS, like short for Australia. But I've changed it, as I said, to learn through play underscore OT.
Okay, well, because you're international and you're global and your your work is and your books are, so that is amazing. I'm going to put those links down below so that you guys can reach out to Claire and find her on Instagram and order the book set. There is so much more I could ask you about, but
well, if anyone, as I say, has any questions as well, I'm very open to receiving messages through Instagram, and I'm always very happy to obviously help. And if I can help in any way, I obviously will share information. So yes, as I say, feel free to reach out. And yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Claire. I really appreciate your time and your wisdom and your knowledge.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Stephanie, for having me. I hope that all made sense. A lot of information to digest there, but hopefully I've kept it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think some really key takeaways about the body and the movement and how that has such a huge influence or impact on our kids' ability to regulate their emotions and their behavior and things like that. So I think, you know, they don't teach us this stuff at school. They don't give us this in our, you know, their prenatal classes. Like we don't say about stuff.
Like, there should definitely be more information. But yes, thank you so much for your time today, Stephanie. It was lovely coming on and chatting with you. And I hope families have found that beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. I know they will have. We will go back through and check some of the comments and things that you guys have put on Facebook. That's amazing. So thank you for joining us, and keep watching in the group, because every week or two we bring another expert and specialist into our community and get their knowledge and really share it with everyone, all the parents here. So stay tuned, and thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you very soon for the next one. All right, have a good day, guys.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.